All right, we're going to get started in just a second. The live stream is about to be started. Get my notes together. All right. We look good to go. All right, everybody. Hello, hello. My name is Jax James Finkel. I am the Executive Director of Texas Normal. And tonight we're going to have our December virtual meeting, just me and you guys, keeping it, you know, kind of what's going on right now, and then looking, oh, there's my alarm telling me the meeting's supposed to start. Super great. Sorry about that, guys. I don't think I've ever had that happen on air before, but you know what? It's the holiday season, so we're keeping it chill. So I will go ahead and kick it off. As I mentioned, I'm Jax Finkel James. I'm the Executive Director of Texas Normal, and I'm going to start off today. Let's talk about some current events. So if you have not seen recently, there has been a lot of back and forth about the Delta 8 ban. As you guys know, there was a lawsuit regarding the Delta 8 ban. They went in, they had a temporary restraining order in place. The judge reversed it, and now it's back. So there's a lot of bouncing back and forth with the Delta 8 ban. If you are someone who sells Delta 8, or if that is something that you're interested in doing, with everything that's going on right now, I strongly recommend that you talk to a lawyer about exactly where everything is at, because literally it can change in just a moment. I know that I was out and about the other day, and someone was like, "Did you see this happen?" And I was like, "Let me go see." So unfortunately, the back and forth can be confusing for a lot of businesses. I know that there's a lot of people and customers and consumers who use Delta 8 products. So no matter if you are a fan of Delta 8 or not, this is something that is affecting both consumers and businesses. So please stay tuned to more about the Delta 8 ban. As we know more, of course, we'll share more with you guys. So another awesome thing that happened in between now and the last time I talked to you guys was, if you live in the Austin area, you probably are familiar with the fact that there was a email campaign that we did with first responders. So here in Austin, and let's be honest, in most of Texas, there is a requirement for people who want to apply to be law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, EMTs, that they have to answer a question on their application. And that question is, have you used marijuana in the last 3 years? Well, I mean, if you're in another state, it's like a 1 in 3 chance that you're in a legal state and that you might have tried it. You might be a patient, or you might be someone who has used legal hemp cannabis products off of the regulated market here in Texas or abroad. So this disqualification disqualified a lot of good candidates who otherwise, you know, probably could have been hired. So there was some news stories about it, and we teamed up with the Austin EMS Association to raise awareness around the issue. And everybody in Austin kind of teamed up and sent in some letters. And essentially, what we were asking for is that City Council remove it, because we are at a deficit here in Austin of, at the time, it was almost 400 first responders. And so every application was valuable, and we needed them all. So fortunately, ATCMS is the name of the part of the city council and the city management that deals with it, but they agreed to remove the question. So we had a win on that. Now, there is still more work to be done. There still can be testing for if you have THC in your system, which, of course, if you use a legal CBD product, or if you are a patient here in Texas, you would have that in your system. So we have still some more work to do, but that is a really big win. I also wanted to share with you guys that there was a petition. So let's do a little flashback in time to almost a year ago. And in January of 2020, Texas Normal worked with a large number of supporting organizations to pass a city council resolution. And what that resolution would do is it would restrict any funding from being, or what it does do, because enacted is it would restrict any funding from being spent on arrests, citations, or anything like that for personal marijuana possession, or any funding to be spent on THC testing. And so to that end, there is a big effort through Ground Game Texas and other organizations to work on a city resolution, or I'm sorry, a resolution on a city ordinance. Here in Austin, there is a ballot initiative on city ordinances. And while we cannot change drug laws at the city level, we have to go through the state legislature for that. We do control the purse strings, if you will, at the local level. So we can tell the local governments how they will spend our dollars. And so this resolution would create an ordinance that would essentially codify this restriction on expenses. So today, in a press conference with several council people, Ground Game Texas announced that they had collected a large amount of signatures, 35,000, and they have submitted them to be verified. And I believe that it was 15,000, or was it 20,000 that they need to actually get on the ballot? So hopefully there are enough verified signatures there. With that many collected, I think it's probably pretty likely. So that's really great news. I also wanted to give an update on the Smokeable Hemp lawsuit. Some of you guys probably were like, yeah, we won, yo, because we did. There was a final judgment on behalf of the plaintiffs stating that smokable hemp should be available. But there's this really sticky widget here in Texas where the state of Texas, what they've done is they filed a direct appeal to the Texas Supreme Court today, and they're seeking to overturn the case. And here in Texas, the state has an extraordinary power under this appeal. Essentially, it suspends the final judgment until the Texas Supreme Court can take action. So at this point in time, the smokable hemp ban could be considered back in effect. I was following Chelsea Spencer of Ritter Spencer online today, and this is how I heard about it. And so this is very new news to me. So I just wanted to pass it along to you guys so that everyone can be cautious and safe and take care of yourself out there during these holiday seasons. I know a lot of businesses have been following this. I see a comment, thanks, Ken Paxton. Yes, thanks, Ken Paxton. So just to keep you guys updated, so there's a Delta 8 lawsuit going on. There is a appeal to the judgment on the smokable hemp ban, but there are multiple wins with the Austin question about cannabis for the discrimination, basically in employment being removed as a question, and also for the petition collecting enough signatures. So we're really excited to be able to, I know I live in Austin, so I am looking forward to voting for that ballot initiative. I do want to let people know, if you're looking at that ballot initiative, it does a few more things than just deal with cannabis. So I do encourage everyone to read it all the way through and learn everything that you're voting on. So I am going to check real quick on the chat and see. So this is just in Austin that I was talking about the EMS and EMTs. So this is something that has to be done kind of on a city by city basis. And it also kind of depends on the makeup of your city. Here in Austin, we have the ability to interact with the city council on that. So that is definitely gonna be something that could change based on the city that you live in. So I just wanted to answer that really quick. And someone mentioned Joe Jaworski because we were talking about Ken Paxton. And so Joe Jaworski is going to be running against him in November. Oh, I see. Thank you for clarifying that you're in Austin too. I thought maybe you were in another city. All right, I'm gonna just check real quick on the Facebooks. Hi, Lauren. Oh my goodness, so many friends watching from so many places. Okay. Okay. I don't see any questions yet, though. Y'all drop them in the comments if you have any. I am going to move on to not real quick. We'll see how quick it takes. But talking about our 2022 plans that are coming up. So the big thing that's going to be happening first is going to be in March of 2022. That is going to be primary election time. So in the state of Texas, Democrats and Republicans go through a primary election process, and third-party candidates go through a different convention process. But if you plan to vote in the Democrat or the Republican primary, then it will be in March, and that is where people will be able to choose who the candidates will be on in the November ballot. And this is really important if you live in a district where there's a prohibitionist that you would like to get out, or if there's something like that. But in primary elections, for example, we know that Texas, did we invent gerrymandering? I mean, like maybe, but we have, only a few districts that are really competitive races. Mostly you're going to know, is this going to be a blue or a red district that I'm in? And it's going to fall accordingly. So primary elections, if you're in one of these gerrymandered districts, actually are one of the best opportunities for you to have an impact. If you know that there are two candidates and one of them is better on cannabis than the other one, then this is going to be a really great opportunity for you to show up at the ballot box and have an impact, and hopefully be able to change who that person is that's going to be on the ballot. I also want to remind everybody that, oh my goodness, so many of our state legislators have retired over this last year. Last I checked, it was well over 24 legislators have retired, I think just in the House. And so if you think about 150 legislators and almost 25 of them have retired, that is a significant portion of the legislators that are going to be coming in that are going to be freshmen. And we have the opportunity to have a really important impact on the makeup of the legislature. So I wanted to share that with y'all. And then, I mentioned the convention process when talking about third-party candidates, picking who is going to be on the ballot, but all of the political parties do go through a convention process. And in this process, they create what their platform planks are, essentially. What are the goals of their political party? And so far, there are platform planks on all of the political parties having to do with cannabis. Of course, some of them better than others, but the convention process is definitely the way that you can engage and make sure that the planks show what you want to have from the party that you're really engaged with. And then we're going to be rounding out the year in November with our general election. It's an off election year, so it is really important to get out and go vote. Usually, let's be real, voter turnout in Texas is not great. And especially in off election years. So it's going to be really important that everybody shows up at the polls in November. And if you're in Austin, remember that that's going to be your time that you're going to be able to vote on defunding the cost and citations and any arrests for THC here in Austin. So good stuff there. I'm going to just check real quick and see if we have any questions. I mean, a lot of comments being like, yeah. Okay, Tony wants to know about veterans actually getting prescriptions for medical cannabis here in Texas. I heard a prescription is $250. So that can depend on the doctor that you're seeing to get qualified. I also work with Foundation for an Informed Texas, and if you go to informedtexas.org, you can click on Become a Patient, and there's a tutorial that walks you through the process. We have a doctor who talks about how cannabis works with your body. We have a pharmacist who talks about any potential counterindications with your prescriptions. And then we have a Teacup registered physician who actually shows you how to get enrolled. Now, doctors can set their fees for this. And so I've seen as low as $99 to get qualified, and I've seen as much as $250 to get qualified. So just to let you know, Tony, the prescription does not come through the VA. It comes through an independent doctor that is not from the VA. And it could be up to $250, but if you shop around, you're going to find a better price than that. When I got qualified for the program, it was a $125 fee for myself. So just wanted to answer that real quick for you, Tony. And also it makes me think we have had a huge influx of patients into the program. Whenever the changes to the program started in September, we were at about, I want to say it was 5,000. And now we're up well over 13,000 patients from the last report from DPS. So we've, multifold grown the number of patients. And some people might be, well, why is that so important? Well, in Texas, the licensing fees are $500,000 every biennium. And I mean, that money has to come from somewhere. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money for a license here in Texas. And when you're spreading that amongst a very small patient pool, it's not quite affordable. So as the patient pool grows, I'm really hopeful that will help grow down or drive down the price. But only time can tell on that. I have not seen a change in the pricing yet, but I did want to just give you all that update that the patient pool is growing, and that is really important. I know a lot of veterans have gotten enrolled. I know that a lot of first responders are trying to get enrolled, so it's going to be really important. Kathy asks about a list of candidates. Yes, Kathy, girl, we put out that voter's guide. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So we will have a voter's guide for you guys it'll be out before March. We're hoping to have it out at the end of January, beginning of February, so that you can use it for early voting as well as voting on actual election day for primary elections. And then we'll have another one coming out in October of 2022. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. Daryl wants to know, is there any updates on new vertical licenses being issued for producers? So I'm going to assume, Daryl, that you're talking about the medical cannabis licensing. There are currently 3 licensees. As far as I know, only 2 of them are actually active. With patient growth like that, there is potential for licensing to reopen. Last time it opened was about 2 years ago, and it was open for a couple of days, and then they took it down in the middle of the night and were like, never mind. So I don't have an answer for you on that. I do know that sometime this month they may be talking about some new regulatory updates, and so that might be an opportunity to talk about that and try to bring that to light, or to even have that come up. But I don't have a clear line on when they will be available again. All right, back to the Book of Face to see. You're very welcome, Tony. Nisha says, can you talk about the primary issues we need to address with those legislators that are still in office that have not supported cannabis in the past? I'll tell you quite simply, a lot of them think it's votes. They don't think that they have support in their arena. They say, in my district, if I vote for that, if I author that, I won't get reelected. That is what I most often hear. So if you're in a district with a prohibitionist, people who support medical cannabis need to really come out. Now, that being said, the definition of a prohibitionist in Texas has kind of changed over the years, because, we have a medical cannabis program that is still low THC and still very limited on conditions. So it's a very, very conservative program that leaves many patients behind and could perhaps underserve some of us. But because it's so conservative, if you will, the last bill that changed and improved the program passed unanimously out of both chambers. So we don't really have anyone who's voting against medical, but we do have people that are wanting to keep it limited. And so it's very nuanced when it comes to that. And so going back to the voter guide that we'll be putting out, included in that will be a legislative voting record. So you can look over history and see, how have these incumbents voted on this. And there will be a lot of freshmen. So we will have a lot of opportunity to win more votes as time goes on. So thank you for your question, Nisha. Okay. Oh, so asking for the website for how to become a Teacup patient. If you go to informedtexas.org, then you'll be able to find it there. Maybe if Stephen could drop a link on Facebook, and I will do it real quick here in the chat. So you go to informedtexas.org, and then you're going to go to laws. And when you hover over Texas Compassionate Use Program, you just click on Become a Teacup Patient, and it will take you right there. And so I'm dropping it here in the Zoom link. Ta-da. All right, great. So, it's holiday season. Since we don't have more questions on these other things, I'm gonna move on to the next thing. It's holiday season. A lot of people are spending more time with their families, having some time off, and a lot of people are wanting to discuss, how do I talk to my family about this conversation? How do I talk to my family about cannabis? Well, the good news is a recent poll showed that a majority of Texans support full-on legalization, a regulated adult use market. And so that's great. So the good news is if you're going home to see family here in Texas, there's a pretty good chance that some of them are already supporters. But not everybody can have all of the information. And so one of the things I would start with is, your family best, but maybe they are not all intentionally being negative about cannabis. We have to keep in mind that there has been negative propaganda about cannabis for decades and decades, and especially perhaps some of our older family members have either lived in fear of being arrested, and so there's some stigma created there, or stigma created through excuse me, allergy throat, stigma created through the propaganda, right? So what we need to first do is come perhaps with some compassion and keep it simple. Let's start simple. Let's be like, hey, did you see that hemp store on your way in, Granny? Did you see that? Oh yeah, there's one in my town around the corner from my house or whatever. Oh, okay. Leave it at that. And then you can come back later and be like, oh, did you know X, Y, and Z? So I would say if you do want to bring it up as a conversation point with your family, be prepared to keep it simple. Do not overwhelm them with information. You guys, there's so many great things about this plant because of all of the different ways that it interacts with our body and the way that the endocannabinoid system is throughout our body and throughout all of the different regulatory systems. And so sometimes if people hear all of the amazing things that it does, they're kind of like, but does it really do that? I don't know if I believe it. So start small, start simple, start with one good piece of information that you really think is going to reel Aunt Karen in. Okay. And then also talk about how in Texas, there is bipartisan majority support for this. I mean, medical cannabis is completely, I want to say last time it was polled, it was like 87% approval. And now we've got, legalization polling at a majority. So there is change coming. And maybe something that people want to talk about is the differences between these policies. So talking about the difference between, use for patients who need it for debilitating chronic, conditions versus decriminalization, which halts these damaging side effects that prohibition has given us for decades, versus legalization, which allows a regulated market for controlled, regulated, high quality, safe products for consumers, ensuring that it's ID required, versus hemp products, which are widely available and also can be used for industrial uses as well. So you can talk a little bit about these nuances. You might be starting the conversation, but let's be real, it's 2021. I'm pretty sure a good majority of you have probably talked to at least one family member about cannabis. That's my guess. And I will say that I have noticed over the years, a lot of people tend to think that our older demographics are less supportive. But here in Austin, not far from us, is Sun City, which is the biggest or second biggest retirement community in the nation. And there is a large group of seniors there working on educating other seniors about cannabis. So I would also say, don't let your own stereotypes get in the way of thinking that someone might be open to this. So just like we don't like to be stereotyped, don't stereotype others. So I would like to just real quick go back to the questions. So now's the time, guys. We're kind of, I'm wrapping things up. So if you have the questions, definitely let me know. All right, what is the top action item that we can share with friends and family to help push legalization? There are so many petitions around, and it's difficult to figure out what are the best actionable steps. What a great question. I love this question. Okay, so there are a lot of petitions going around. And what I will say is in most cases, a petition in Texas is not going to change any law. Of course, in Austin, we're doing the defunding thing. That is a thing, but it's not going to change a law, a penal code. It's not going to do that. And so the most important thing that you can do is leading up to this primary election is get registered to vote. Make sure all of your friends and family are registered to vote. And then in the primary, make sure, especially if they're in a gerrymandered district, that they're getting out and they are voting for the most cannabis-friendly candidate on the ballot. Also, I'm going to encourage every single person that is watching me right now, no matter what time it may be in the time-space continuum, to go to texasnormal.org and click join. We have a variety of membership levels, and your memberships are what allow us to do this important work and stay on top of all of these different things that are going on. And so it's extremely important that you guys join our organization. And I will let you know, part of the membership, if you choose the levels that have it, is that you get a specialty member-only item that only members get, nobody else gets. I love that specialty swag. So I wanted to throw that out there as well. Let me just check over here real quick and see if we have any questions. Patricia says, I have personally had more pushback from people in the younger generations than me than from my fellow seasoned citizens. I like that, Patricia. Yeah, I mean, you never know who is going to disapprove of this. And so it's extremely important that you are ready to have those conversations. And I also want to add, be prepared, but also be willing to say, I don't know. It is more important for you to own that you would like to do a little research and follow up with them than for you to give them misinformation and then for them to later just not trust you on these types of conversations. So I just wanted to add that as well. All right, Mike is adding, is Beto pro-weed? So Beto O'Rourke is going to be, I don't think there's another governor candidate right now, but he's going to be running against whoever wins the Republican governor nomination, which there are several people running right now, but it's assumed that Governor Abbott would win that. But Beto has been supporter of all kinds of cannabis legislation over the years. I had the opportunity to actually interview him at one point in DC and meet him a couple times along the campaign trail. And I know that he really does understand this issue, and it's something that he does care about. So whenever you're looking at who to vote, of course, make sure that you're looking at those points as well. I know that there's a lot of things that people look at whenever they're deciding on who they want to, and that's why we have the voter guide available for you so that you can integrate that into your decision making. All right, I think that might be all that we have. Awesome. Well, listen, guys, it's December. It's the end of the year. I hope that you all are able to spend an amazing time with your loved ones, whether it be virtually or in person. I've really enjoyed being able to continue to connect with all of you guys over this last year. It's been mostly virtual. We were able to have our first in-person social last month, and it was really nice to be able to get out. But thank you so much for continuing to tune in, to continuing to stay engaged, especially in these cities that are working on, defunding the prosecution, the arrest for THC, for people who are running as candidates, for people who are out there doing education, talking to your families about this over the holidays. I just want to give y'all a shout out, because the way that we continue to change these laws is by continuing to apply pressure. So it's really important that we continue to have these conversations. Oh, I got one more alert that I want to answer real quick. Stuart wants to know, what is the attitude for Teacup patients on gun ownership? So I have a link for you, Stuart, and Stephen, if you would put this on Facebook as well. We have a one-pager from Informed Texas, which talks about the frequently asked questions, and it's going to have the information that you're looking for about license to carry. And I'm going to put that right here so you can look that up. And Stephen's going to drop that on Facebook, if you would, please, sir. I'm glad we got to that real quick. I know a lot of people are really interested in that. There are some federal and some state laws at play. In Texas, the state laws you can feel relatively safe about. The federal level, we still have more work to do. That's the too long didn't read version of what you'll find on that one pager. So on that note, guys, I am going to sign off with y'all. It is a beautiful Wednesday evening here in Austin, Texas, and I really hope that all of you have a lovely evening enjoying either your favorite herbal accoutrement or just enjoying your time to yourself. So I will see you guys in the new year. So take care, everybody.